Hi there, Adrian here, mortgage broker based in Sydney. On this channel we talk about all things lending, finance and investments, and on this video we're going to discuss my journey into property and how I've gotten to where I've gotten today. Now bear in mind this will just be a very good overview, so you've got a very good idea, and then on future videos I'm going to get a lot more granular on what I've done and how I've done it. Alright, so for the majority of my working career, maybe 13, 14 years total, I've been in any three forms of lending. So lending on a stockbroking desk, on a margin lending desk, okay, lending in a Big Four bank with Commonwealth Bank, and then running my own mortgage broking company for the last 4.5 years. Alright, so I started in the GFC during that period in 2008 to 2010. Alright, so in that period where stocks were tanking, and my role as a margin lending account manager was to keep the accounts in order. So I'd be calling people as the stocks were going down, asking for more collateral in the form of shares or cash, and if they didn't supply that collateral within that day period, we would have to force sell the shares. Alright, so it was a very stressful time in the markets. Then I went to the Commonwealth Bank. I was a home lender there in Sydney eastern suburbs, and now I'm a mortgage broker for the last 4.5 years. So I'm pretty well rounded on all of the financial markets. When I was working in ComSec, I worked on the margin lending desk, but I cross-trained in 4 other roles. So there's pretty much nothing I haven't done in the Australian markets, which is why I'm able to sit here confidently talk about a lot of different things, concepts, markets, how things work, because pretty much every day of the week I'd be answering everyone else's questions for about a 7-year period while I was in ComSec. All right, so case in point, my last kind of couple of months in ComSec, I'm in a situation where I'm not happy with work. So I move over to the Commonwealth Bank side of the business and I start in the lending side. So I'm there I cross-skill there for about 2 years where I'm trained, and I'm in the role for about a year before I choose to go into the broking market. Now, at the time, very close to the end of my time in ComSec and CBA, I actually had a period of my life, which is probably the hardest period in my life, which was the divorce with my first marriage. And there was quite a bit of a stressful period between about 2014 and 2016 where my ex-wife and I, we bought land, we built a property, and then the separation occurred, and then we had to sell that property. So I went through a construction period during a very kind of stressful time in my life. And yeah, then the separation occurred and I didn't know what to do. I was in a position where I was still working in Commonwealth Bank, but suddenly I've sold a house. I'm sitting on a large balance of money. And when I looked at that money, I looked at the ability to figure out what I wanted to do and take the stress off making another decision while having a cash buffer behind me. So at that time, I chose to go into the broking market. Now, it did take me quite a few years, even with my lending experience, to get my feet. I was always an ABN working, under a business, but most of the time for the first kind of 18 to 24 months, I was working under someone else's mortgage broking business. And then the last 2.5 years, I've been running my own shop. All right, so I'm the owner. I've got a loan support behind me, and no one else is my boss. All right, so I run my own mortgage broking company. All right, so it's been a 4.5 year process for me to get to this point. There's pretty much no forms of lending that I haven't done. So asset finance, commercial, private, construction. I'm pretty well rounded, and with my background in the stock market as well as my background in Big Four banking, I'm pretty well rounded as a mortgage broker. And you don't really get a guy that's age 34 that all they've ever done is lending, because half the time you see brokers a lot older than me, and half the time they don't even have any financial services experience before they become a broker. So that's me in a nutshell. And then what happened was I started in the broking channel, and because it takes 12, 24 months to even get your feet. And most people leave the industry within that time period. You don't make a lot of money. So over that time, I focused a lot more on skill set and experience and getting the right mentors. And then my income started to ramp at the end of the second year. So now we're at the end of the 4.5 year, and if anything, when we're looking at my income, it's ticked up kind of the last 3.5 years. Every year it's gone up more than 20 to 30%. So I've been in a position where I got to the end of 2020, and I ended up meeting my my new wife. So Maria, she's the love of my life, amazing lady. I couldn't be happier with her. So what happened was at the end of 2016, it was a marriage of about 3 years, and really as soon as we got married, things went downhill. So it's almost like I felt like the separation period was that first 3 years. So when the government and the courts force you to take a 12-month separation, I didn't feel like I needed that, because I was in a position where I already felt disconnected. There was already time, and I'd already gone through everything that I needed to go through. So pretty much that first year during the separation period before I got a divorce, that's when I met my wife Maria. So some people think it's quick, but if you know the back end of how long the separation truly was and how bad the marriage was, people understand why I wanted that sense of companionship and to be close to someone. So I met Maria in the first year of separation. It would have been early 2017. So I've been with Maria ever since, the love of my life, amazing lady, and she's the kind of the powerhouse behind me and my business. She runs a household, she works hard, and she gives me the ability to spend a lot of time in the business and help my clients. So right now I'm in that position where in late 2020 you had COVID start, and that's when my first purchase happened. So we had the first purchase. It was a property in between Newcastle and Maitland. All right, and the original plan was that we were working in Sydney, and we were actually going to move up there and then just use my income, because I can work from anywhere. So we had our family up there, so we used them as and we tracked the market for about 6 months, and then we found a nice property. All right, so that was our first purchase. It was a 3-bedder, 2-bath, 2-car property on a really big block. And what we did with that one was we purchased in a suburb called Woodbury. And if anyone knows that suburb, it's got really bad housing commission there, and it's quite a rough area. But all I was looking at was numbers showing that every suburb around it was priced at 150 grand more than what we were buying it at. And if I didn't buy in that housing commission area, the street that I bought in was a lot better priced. Okay, it was almost like the same price as the neighbouring suburb, Beresfield. So the strategy that we used was a family member was up at the end of that street already, all right, and we knew that the train station and the shops were in the other direction. So all we did was we bought in the street and on the last street in the suburb. So you go out of that street, and then it turns into an 80-kilometre zone that goes up to Raymond Terrace. All right, so that's what we did. Brick home, amazing buy, bought it, got that done. We ended up purchasing it for $440, and it's probably worth about $680 to $700 now within a 2-year period. All right, so that was the first buy, and then we were going to rent it out for 12 months and then move up. That was the goal. Then we ended up we got that one done, rented it out, got a good rental yield, $450 a week, 440k purchase price, and we were good to go. We started our journey, and even at that stage we weren't going to be as aggressive as what I am now with buying investment properties. Okay, we were going to move up there, and then I was going to buy a couple, but I wasn't going to be as aggressive as what we have. So what we did was we rent vested from that first property, and we were renting in South Sydney, and then it was pretty much let's save up another deposit or keep on checking the value of that property, and then at a time when I lodge my next tax return, that's when we can start buying again. So the purchase happened in December of 2020, and then I ended up waiting about another 11 months to lodge my tax return, take the tax hit because I'm self-employed, so pay the tax, and then I had a residual amount of money plus the increased income on the tax return for the borrowing power. All right, so I lined all that up properly and bought my second property, which was in Ipswich in the west of Brisbane. And now a lot of people don't like this area. They say that it's too far away from Brisbane CBD at about 45 kilometres, and it's its own satellite city, so it's very similar to what a Penrith or a Parramatta is treated like in Sydney, and you can just get amazing prices there. So I bought a property in Raceview. 388k was the purchase price, and it was 4-bed, 1 bath, and it had 2 cars, but it had a driveway right down the side. Big block, just short of 700 square metres, and in that council you can put a 1-bedder, 50 square metre granny flat on the back. So I'm actually going to be putting that on in July or August. All right, so the rental yield we got was $400 a week, and the 1-bedder granny flat is right now about $280 a week that we can get. So we'll have a $680 a week coming from that property by about, say, October of this year. All right, so everything was either neutrally geared or positively geared, so money wasn't coming out of my pocket. Now, the third purchase was very close to that. It was within 2 months. We purchased in the south of Brisbane, okay, and the suburbs Bethania, and again, it's a suburb in the Logan area where a lot of people say you can't make growth, you can't make money, you can't make cash flow. Well, here I am telling you that you can, and I've shown you that I've done it. All right, and not just that, I'm not just buying property for a good rental yield. I'm manufacturing that by putting granny flats on the back. So again, same strategy: 3-bed, 1 bath, 1 car, big block, and I can put a 2-bedder granny flat on that. And with the rental crisis at the moment in the Logan area and the Ipswich area, I can actually get. I was thinking $300 a week when I bought it. Now I'm thinking more towards $350 to $370. We're seeing rental yields. So you're buying a 160k granny flat. I've been priced at for a 2-bedder, and the 1-bedder is about 142. All right, and you're getting over a 10% yield on your money. So that's how I look at it. All right, so yeah, that's what we're going to do, and we're putting the Bethania one in most likely in January of next year when the lease comes up for that property. All right, so we bought it for $410, and funny thing was when I used a buyer's agent, and when we bought that property, there was a big rainstorm when the building and pest guy did the walkthrough, and it was actually it was a lady that my buyer's agent contacted who was getting harassed by 3 other real estate agents in that area to list her property. So she went, nah, I'm going to go direct to a buyer's agent. I'm not going to pay a sales commission fee, and I'm going to deal direct with an investor. So she said $410 and you can have it. But in the middle of the building and pest, this heavy rain came down, and we found out that there was a problem under the property. Okay, it wasn't dispersing the water correctly. Now, we priced it up. We thought the cost would be about $500 to $600. All right, but because the extent of the rain on that day, and the lady was a little bit scared that we would fall through because we weren't unconditional yet, we actually negotiated $4,500 off the purchase price, okay, to make us happy with continuing with the transaction. All right, so there's half of my buyer's agent fee paid for just because my buyer's agent was willing to ask the question. All right, so we got that one done We're happy. We're going to put the granny flat in about 7 or 8 months' time. The lease was really low. It was $340 a week on that one. So before we went unconditional, I told them I wasn't willing to go formal, so I wasn't willing to go unconditional unless they actually notified the tenant and gave me a copy of the notification that the rent was going up from $340 to $390. Okay, so that's what we did. So to protect because I didn't want them taking a lease, rolling it for 12 months, and then me getting hit with another $2,500 to $3,000 worth of expenses of holding the property when they could just increase it. So it's going to go from $390, most likely $340 to $390, and it's going to go to about say $430 to $440 on the next lease, because I wanted to increase it higher, but with QCAT in Queensland and tribunals, you don't want to increase it too much on the first lease or they can take you to the tribunal. All right, so that's what we've done, and that's the progression plan with the rent. All right, now the next one was the top of the Gold Coast. So that was Ormeau Hills, and we picked a property up that fell through settlement, again with my buyer's agent. And it fell through settlement at $450, and then my buyer's agent lowballed them at $430, and we got it. So that was only how many months ago? It was about 4 months ago, because it settled about 2 months ago, and we're on our second month's worth of rent coming in. All right, so it's a dual key property, 5 years old, 4 bed, 2 bath, 1 car, and 2 bed, 1 bath, 1 car. Now, the original rent that we had on that property was $360 on the 4 bed side, $290 on the other side. All right, and it wasn't really an owner-occupier feel to this property. It was very close to the highway. There was a billboard in the footing of the billboard next to the highway was in our yard. So I got my solicitor before I went unconditional, and I told them I'm happy for the footing to stay. I like the fact that the billboard is there because it's actually deafening the sound, and the front of the property actually had double glazed glass and things. So if you're inside the property, you can't really hear the highway, which is perfect. But I like the fact that the billboard was there to sound deaden the property a little bit. All right, so we got that one. And then I told my solicitor to contact the billboard company and say, we're happy for you to keep the footing in the yard, but you've got to pay us every year to keep that footing there. All right, or you've got to move it and it's going to cause you a problem. So they ended up paying us $1,500 a year just to keep the footing in our yard, and it's like a metre in on the corner, so it doesn't even obstruct access or anything like that. So it got presented to maybe 1 or 2 other people before it got to me through my buyer's agent, and really it was all a numbers play. So I knew rents were going up, and I was in a position where I thought rents would increase, and I was right, because the current rent is going to go up from $360 on one side to $420, so a $60 increase there, and then we're going to have a situation where we've got the $290 going up to $350. So again, on the next lease, I'm going to get $120 a week extra. And really, if you check on all of the markets, I'm not increasing the rents too high. All right, I'm actually checking online and making sure that I'm still competitive at the rental rates that I do. So if I ever get a complaint from a renter saying that I'm not being fair, even though I'm competitively priced, I want to be at the market rate, but I don't want to be a slumlord putting it up way too much. I just want to pay whatever the low end of the market rate is. So that's what we've done. All right, so and you wouldn't believe it, the price that we got that property for was $430. All right, so $430,000. All right, but I had 2 bank valuations as a mortgage broker. I ordered them; they were sitting at $700,000. All right, you couldn't even get a 4-bed house in Ormeau Hills for less than $650 on a very small block of land, like 350 to 400 square meters. All right, and this was sitting on over 700 with a dual key, less than 5 years old, with a full depreciation schedule, sitting on maybe a 9% yield. on rental yield. Well, close to an 8%, but after the rental increase, over 9%. All right, so at this time, I went through that, and we did some funny things. So we the day after settlement, we pulled money out and used that to fund our next deposit, and also for the dual key property, so the Ormond Hills one, we revalued my Woodbury one, and we pulled money out of that for the deposit for the fourth one, and then we revalued the day after settlement at 700,000. And then managed to, on paper, we made $270,000 just on that buy. Now, I call that a unicorn property. You can't really find that anywhere else. And even if you look at 2,000 deals, you may not find another deal like that. So I was very happy with that one. All right, now we're in the stage where I want to continue buying. All right, and my borrowing power is pretty good, up to about 6 to 7 properties. All right, so what we do is we pull some money out of that and let's go again. So I actually chased my buyer's agent for this one. He didn't present it to me. And it was my 5th and 6th property, which was 2 units, again in South Brisbane in an area called Woodridge. Now, I estimated the value of those properties were anywhere from 200 to 210 if the rent was correct. Okay, but it wasn't. It was under rented at 205 and 210 per week, which was really low. All right, so the buyer's agent used that as a negotiation tool, and we settled on just over 160. So 161 and 162 and a half. All right, now the current yields were bad, and the strata on the building was 2,500 per unit. So not high, doesn't have any, it was a walk-up, it was a 12 unit block, and it was sitting on over 2,000 square metres of land. So each unit, I got about 250 square metres of land value, which is exactly what you want with a unit. You want the small boutique blocks where you get land value. Okay, also you don't want any elevators or massive gardens or anything that ups the strata price. I'm not willing to buy a unit unless I get great yields. So once I've had a look at the rent, again, we're in a situation where the market, you can't get anything under 280 per week anywhere, and there's a lack of rentals on the market everywhere. It's a huge crisis at the moment. So again, we've got the settlement coming up at the end of June and start of July. I've got one happening last day of June, one happening at the end of July. All right, and we're in a position where everything's going to go through, and about 2 to 3 months later the leases come up and the rent will go to 280 per week, and my gross yield on that will be over 9% less strata. So again, a cash cow that's going to pay itself off well. All right, so we're at 6 properties now. The 5th and 6th are formal, awaiting settlement. Everything's done. Okay, deposits are there, and I'm just about to lodge my tax return, and that'll be early July. I've already booked it with the accountant, and I'll have enough deposits for one. Again, I'm going to try a property in the Logan area in South Brizzy with my buyer's agent. I'm actually going to move up there with my wife, so we move into Brisbane, and then we're going to put a granny flat on the back of that one and a granny flat on the back of my Raceview one. So we're going to do that while we move into one of the properties, which will be my 7th purchase. And then really I can do a couple of things. One, I can pull another deposit out of Woodbury if I want to, or I can pull another deposit out of my Ormond Hills property if I want to, because I only pulled out about half the amount that I wanted, up to 80%. So I can pull out the other half if I want. Plus, I've got the savings that I'm making between, it was about March or late or early April, from April to about July. So most likely I'll continue buying, and my next purchases may not be in the Queensland market. I may make some purchases in the WA market, okay, because I've been tracking a couple of suburbs there. So there is a couple of areas that I'm looking at that are around about that 260 to 280k mark, and you can get between 360 and 380 rent on it. So I'm hoping in the middle of this interest rate crisis that a lot of the buyers run away, and I can get a great deal before the interest rates start coming down. So so my goal is, 260 to 280k property, 360 to 380 rent. That's the goal, and sitting on just over a 7% yield. And I'm not going to do granny flats on those two that I buy there. And then really I've got a ramp plan where I'm going to max myself out at around kind of 10 to 12 properties, and I'll be finished by maybe March to May of next year. All right, and then my future goal is to stop buying, and then I'm a avid reader and supporter of a person called Phil Anderson. So he's an Australian property and economics analyst, and he wrote a book. So he essentially he read a book called The Power in the Land in the 80s. And then in the 90s, he started pulling a lot of data and doing some analytics. And then he wrote a book on the 18.2-year property cycle. So my view is that and this is a personal view, is that we're going to have a period of time up until about, say, 2026 to 2028 when the next kind of big downturn happens. So I want to stop buying by probably start of next year, and then I want to use my business income, use the very high yields that I'm going to be on. So I'm going to be on between 6 to 8% rental yields, and I want to use that to stack money in the offset. De-risk the portfolio. Hopefully the values of the property go up as this point in the cycle that we're in, because a lot of inflation's coming through, and people think that prices aren't going to go higher, but I assure you they will. And from a personal point of view, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. With this level of inflation, it's only going to go one way, and that's up. And I've intentionally bought property, the 3-bed, 1-bath, 1-car. Every suburb that I bought in has low vacancy. Every suburb that I bought in has high rental yields. Every suburb that I've bought in, I've never bought in the top 50% of the market. I've always bought in the kind of the lowest 20% portion in that market. So I'm always the cheapest property that everyone wants to buy, everyone wants to rent. So I'm specifically in that section of the market, because I've seen the data flows with 60 to 70,000 people moving out of Sydney, moving out of Melbourne, and everyone's going to Queensland, and about 75% of them are either on the Gold Coast or Brisbane, and then about 5 to 10% of them are settling in Sunshine, and then the rest are going to northeast Queensland in the likes of your Bundabergs, your Townsvilles and your Cairns. So there's a huge amount of data showing the creep. And we're not just seeing that from a state-to-state point of view, we're seeing that from a regional point of view compared to Sydney. And if Sydney and Melbourne are at such high prices, people will move to the cheaper prices. So it's very easy, in my view, to get a property up from 250 to 400 to 6 to 700. Very easy compared to buying these 800, 900k properties and hoping it goes up a couple of 100k. All right, so really that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that the values of the property go up over time, over the next kind of 3 to 4 years. I'm hoping the rental yields continue going high, and I'm in a position right now where even if I didn't put 1 cent of my business money into my portfolio, and I sat the portfolio there for the next 14 years, it will pay itself off in 14 years. And I'm using higher interest rates than the current market, and I'm putting a lot of contingencies in there and being conservative. So if you're sitting on a 6 to 8% rental yield, and a lot of people say you can't get growth out of that portfolio because you bought in the bad areas, or you need to buy blue chip property in certain suburbs, and I'm here saying that that's completely false. you can get plenty of growth in these properties. You can buy in these larger cities, and even if you don't get the rental yield well at the start, you can put a granny flat on the back and manufacture that rental yield up. Okay, and also I get a depreciation schedule for every granny flat that I build as well, so I get tax write-offs as well. All right, so there's definitely ways that you can do it in a very conservative way. I'm proof of that, and what I want to do is I want to be very open and honest on this channel about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and I'll be completely honest with you because obviously my situation has changed. I will have a tax return with my wife's income combined. Up for the last tax return, we got to 7 properties, which is coming up to the next one. Because I've still got a pre-approval right now, so I could buy my 7th right now if I wanted to. We've got into 7 properties, and when the total household income was less than $210,000. Now, obviously, my income has gone up from my last tax return, all right, but I just want to be completely open and honest. We've rent vested, we haven't had any credit cards, no personal loans, no car loans, no zip pay, no afterpay, no student debt. We've chosen to rent vest, and we've done it in a way where we've maximized our borrowing power. All right, so you can get to the likes of 6, 7, 8 properties, even if your household income's under $210,000. All right, and I'm not all buying these 200 grand cheapie properties. Over half of the properties are at 400 grand or slightly over. All right, so it definitely is achievable if you structure it properly. And I'm going to be doing a lot more videos in depth on each one that I bought, what I've done, how I've structured it, why it kind of added into the portfolio. Because I think a lot of people, they focus way too much on what they think they want to buy, as opposed to what will the bank want you to buy to get the next property. Okay, and a lot of people, they stop at the 1 or 2 property mark. Okay, they stop there because they buy these 900 grand properties with 600 rent, and then they're negatively gearing it heavily, and then they buy the first one and they're seeing the money come out of their account every week just to service the debt. Okay, then when they go to the bank, they see the rent's not high, so it doesn't support the next level of buying, and we wonder why people are in a situation where most investors only have 1 to 2 properties, max investment properties, and less than 1% get over 6 properties, which I'm currently at now. All right, so I'm going to be very open and honest about this journey. When I go up to Brisbane, I'm going to be doing a lot more on-site stuff and showing you what I bought, the ins and outs, and showing you why I did certain things. And then I really hope that you can get on this journey, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me a comment. I'm just a young guy trying to exit the matrix at the moment, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job at it at the moment. So bear in mind, this is all my personal journey. This is what I'm doing. Okay, always check with your accountant or financial planner. Never take advice from me direct. Okay, go out and do what you need to, but I am a mortgage broker, so if you need help on the mortgage broking side of things, I can help there as well. All right, and everything's in the comment box below. All right, hope that you've enjoyed this longer one. I hope that you've seen the journey that I'm on, see the journey that I'm continuing to do, and let's show you what my next buys are. Once I get to formal approval, I'll show you the future buys that I've got. I'll show you the total portfolio. I'll show you the interest rates that I'm on. I'll show you the repayments that I'm on. I'll show you the buffer that I've got in my rental compared to my interest-only payment, the buffer that I'm on compared to my principal and interest repayment, showing you that I'm doing it in a conservative way, and just showing you that it is achievable in the Australian market. A lot of people think this dream of exiting the matrix is too hard, but I'm here telling you that you can do it. All right, hope that you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next one. All right then, bye.